Our question is from a teacher, and she's saying, "Good afternoon, Miss Jumebi. I have an issue in my classroom. My children are always rowdy, refusing to sit still. So I spend almost half of my class time telling them to sit down. How do I go about this?" I think the question should be, why do you want your children to sit still throughout a lesson, or from morning till afternoon? That's roughly 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. and for some 4 p.m. Because I've noticed that teachers assume that children should be sitting down throughout their lessons, that children must be sitting still while in school. But it's very difficult. And I'll make reference to the COVID lockdown, when we had to transition from physical classrooms to virtual classrooms. It was quite difficult for me. Not in terms of technology, it was just that I had some form of frustration sitting down for 30 minutes to 45 minutes to 1 hour teaching children virtually. I'm in a career that makes me move. Like, my career as a teacher requires that I'm always on the move. You're moving from child to child, row to row, table to table, classroom to classroom. So that period of sitting down in front of a laptop and engaging children was tiresome for me. It wasn't good for my body system at all. And I remember speaking to the virtual learning coordinator at that time to please put me on alternate days or have alternate classroom schedules, because I just couldn't cope with sitting still or sitting throughout the duration of the virtual lessons. So that's for me as an adult. Now compare that to a child, right? It's very difficult for children to sit still. But I think that the best thing for you to do, in fact for any teacher to do, is to incorporate movement into your lessons. I'm not talking of free-for-all movements now, I'm talking of structured movements, right? Where children are moving, but there's an objective to the movement. They are moving strategically. They are not moving for the sake of moving, right? For instance, you would have children, of course, a lot of us tell children to stand up to answer questions. You could take it further and tell them to come out to the front of the classroom and give answers to the questions you have asked. Take it a step further again by telling them to write the answers on the board, right? You could have those kind of movements. You could have claps or dances incorporated into some of your lessons, especially if you're teaching nursery school children, preschool and nursery, right? Incorporate lots of movement, lots of claps, lots of dancing. There's even a philosophy in education that covers movement, right? And you could even have children. So what we set up for someone in Lagos was we made the walls to be talking walls. So we had, for every week, whatever was supposed to be discussed that week, the definitions, or for instance maths, the equations or formulas were put on the walls, right, with tic tacs that could easily be removed. And anytime a child moves to that part of the wall, or any child at all moves to that part of the wall, right, they are encouraged to read what was on the wall before going back to their seats. It means that if I get to the west part of my classroom, if a child gets to the west part of the classroom, the child is supposed to read what is on the west of the wall. That is what is on the wall, the west part of the classroom, right? So sometimes you have a definition, or you have a tagline, or you have a formula. You could have the math formula, perimeter formula, or area formula, or formula for area of a rectangle or a square, or area of a circle or circumference of a circle. So they were supposed to look at it, read it out loud, and then go back to their seat. So you can only read it out loud if a lesson is not in progress, right? So that's another kind of movement. You could even have 20 minutes lesson time and then 2 minutes break. Now that 2 minutes break helps a child to restart and refocus. It is actually encouraged in education, right? Because every child has a limit, has an elastic limit, or a limit to how long he can sit still to retain information. So by the time you have 20 minutes lesson and then you take 20 minutes or 2 minutes break, you restart and help the child. You restart the child's brain and help the child to refocus, right? So you see that the child concentrates better or is alert by the time the 2 minutes break is ended and he has to start learning all over again. You could also write a note to a teacher in another class and have your most hyperactive child take that note to the teacher. It helps the child. By the time the child goes on that walk and comes back, he feels refreshed, right? He might not know it, but a lot has taken place in his mind to keep him focused on the lesson by the time he's sitting down again. There are so many movements you could incorporate in your lesson, but the key is that the movement must be structured, and children will know if you don't keep to the rules of our movement in class, then you'll be restricted from moving for an hour or for the whole day, right? That usually helps. But to expect children to sit still throughout a lesson, throughout the day, I'm not sure if it's working. It's not doable at all, right? So just incorporate structured movements into your classroom, into your lessons, and yeah, you'll be fine. Having children rearrange their classrooms or take materials back to the shelf or do something, or even turning to each other to talk about the lesson that is going on, have conversations. So you turn to the right, you tell your children, turn to the person on your right and have a conversation on this topic for the next 2 minutes. Of course, rules will also follow so that they don't take advantage of it and start making noise, right? But there are so many. Basically, what I'm saying is you cannot restrict children from moving in a classroom, but just make sure that it is controlled and structured, and you'll be fine. Thank you very much.